The Dragon Ball Daima news cycle has begun, and you can stay up to date by subscribing, enabling all notifications, and if you miss something, go to the playlist tab and click the Dragon Ball Daima news playlist and watch all the content so you can keep up with all the videos and streams covering all the news coming out of the newest Dragon Ball anime. Get ready because there's a lot of content incoming. Thank you for your support as always. Let's get back to the video. Sunday afternoon, I went to go see the Dragon Ball Daima English dub premiere in theaters. They showed the first 3 episodes of Daima with a special greeting or special message from Masako Nozawa, the Japanese voice of Goku and the entire Sun family, the males. And they showed the first 3 episodes. So I'm going to give you the rundown on my initial thoughts on the Dragon Ball Daima dub. Now, I have already done not only episode reviews on these episodes when they aired in Japanese, but also I've done Easter egg breakdowns going deeper into the lore and deeper into the references and things you may have missed about the episodes. I will leave both of those playlists at the end of this video and in the cards in the upper right so you can get caught up. I've also done episodes 4 and 5 because the Japanese are ahead by about 2 or 3 weeks or so. But right now, the dub is in theaters for about 3 days, limited run, special event. The big hook, the big, I guess you could say, draw for the English dub of Daima is that for the first time in 15 years, Stephanie Nadolny has returned to Dragon Ball. She voiced Kid Gohan in the original Dragon Ball Z Funimation Texas dub back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and she also voiced Kid Goku in original Dragon Ball and GT. She has now returned after a 15-year absence, reprising her role once again in a brand new environment. Dragon Ball Daima is being produced completely different than Dragon Ball Z was because not only is it being somewhat simuldubbed, meaning it's only a couple weeks behind. Remember, Dragon Ball Z aired in America years after it was finished in Japan, so we don't have to wait that long. But also there's a new director, Jonathan Rigg, a whole bunch of new people. In fact, Funimation doesn't even exist anymore. It's been merged with Crunchyroll and bought by Sony. So it's like a whole different landscape down there. They have produced this dub. So the familiar voices of Dragon Ball play the adult characters. Sean Schemmel, Chris Sabat, Monica Rial. You know them. You've heard them for years and years and years. But when the kid characters come in, there's a whole slew of new actors that were brought in to portray the kid versions, and some of them sound pretty convincing. I think the big draw, though, is people wanting Stephanie back. They have so much nostalgia, and I will say the first thing that you'll pick up on instantly is the feeling of nostalgia. She is not playing a character that she has forgotten about. It literally feels like Stephanie picked up the microphone 15 years ago and never put it down. It literally feels like that. She sounds exactly the same. Her cadence as Goku is the same. It's just that the script for Daima, and this is a good news, is much more accurate than the old Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball scripts. This is actually super close to the Japanese. Now, there were some changes. There were a couple of lines that were added, not anything too crazy, and some different phrasing was used, but overall, it's pretty much the same thing. So if you've seen it subbed, I can say that you're going to get the same experience and the same story dubbed. Couple things here and there, like I said, that are slightly different, but nothing that breaks the story or changes the characters like some of the older dubs did. So hearing Stephanie again might get you in the door, but it's not going to keep you. The show has to actually be consistently well done, and it was. The actors all do a good job. I'll go into specific performances here in just a minute, but I want to first of all say that I think it's cool that Dragon Ball had 3 episodes of Daima in theaters. However, I feel like 3 was not enough. I think that when you watch Daima episodes 1, 2, and 3, I feel like they're still building up the story, and it would have been better if it was the first 4 episodes, because I think that the 4th episode has enough action to warrant a theatrical visit. You have to remember that going to see something in the theater is not the same as watching something week to week, and that's not the same as binging. So even though you're getting an episode in bunches, the first 3 episodes don't really have that much action. It's all set up. So if you're in the theater and that's your first time seeing Daima, I don't think the action from episode 1 and episode 3 was really all that satisfactory for a theatrical experience. And I'm just being honest with that. I think it would have worked better if they had the first 4 episodes or maybe even the first 5, because in the 5th episode, you actually see like a long sequence, a longer fight. I think that would have been ideal, but it would have probably made the runtime longer, but that's okay. Now, some weird things they did. So remember how episode 1 of Daima was longer, but had like, it didn't have an intro. Like it didn't have like the Jaka John intro. They played it during a credit roll. So it's the same thing here. And as the credits are going up, I was worried that people were going to leave, but nobody left. So episode 1 is just like the Japanese, but in English. The credits go up, and again, nobody left. So that tells me that the majority of the audience either already knew it was going to be 3 episodes and stuck around, because some didn't know, or they had already seen it in Japanese and knew there was more coming. So I think most of them kind of had already seen it in Japanese. There were older people there, not older like old people, but like there were people closer to our age, 20s and 30s. So it was not an audience made up of kids. Now, I want to know what your theatrical experience was seeing this. So let me know in the comments down below how you liked it, and more importantly, how your crowd was. Were there a lot of people? Were they young? Were they old? Were there parents with their kids? I'm super curious. So, as I mentioned, they aired the first episode. Then for episodes 2 and 3, they just went right to the episode. No Jaka John title screen. And then for the end, they didn't even have like the regular ending screen from the Japanese. They had a text scroll up with the Japanese credits and different scenes from the first 3 episodes behind them. And then they had the dub credits in black after. So that was weird. And I thought it was a mistake because the opening animation to Daima shows Goku and Vegeta both in Super Saiyan in the demon realm fighting it out, and some really cool scenes with the Tamagami. And that's something they should have had in here because, first of all, hearing that song with the 5.1 surround was cool. And the audio was great, by the way. It was a great, great mix. But also, seeing Super Saiyan Goku, seeing more of the upcoming fights is going to get people more entranced than seeing where the story goes. There just wasn't enough action with these episodes for a theatrical run, in my opinion. They should have added one more. Now, I was here to talk about the voices. So, as I mentioned, it's not Chris Sabat playing Kid Vegeta or trying to like change his voice to go younger. No, Kid Vegeta is played by Paul Castro Jr., and he did a pretty good job. This guy got all of the dub Vegeta's like cadence down. This was great. He did a phenomenal job. Now, for Kid Piccolo, Nassim Benelkour, I may have messed up his name. That's the voice of Piccolo. Even though his voice was, there's nothing wrong with his voice. The problem with Piccolo is that dub Piccolo is like Chris Sabat's real voice, like a very deep, very stoic voice. So how do you do a kid version? Like there's no frame of reference here. So what ended up happening was Kid Piccolo, Nassim's performance, he sounded more like a teenager. And I understand that because he is a young guy, but I also feel like if I were cast as Kid Piccolo, it would be difficult for me because I would have to figure out how to make Piccolo sound like a kid, and that's hard because it wasn't really like how Kid Piccolo sounded in the old Dragon Ball anime, because we do see Kid Piccolo there for a few filler episodes, but all he really does is make noises. He may have had like 1 or 2 lines. This had to be a different kind of performance. Now, the thing that made sense about Piccolo sounding older, even though ironically he's a lot younger, because if you remember, Demon King Piccolo birthed Piccolo Jr. 3 years before the 23rd tournament, which is 5 years before Dragon Ball Z. So Piccolo's 8 years old at the beginning of Dragon Ball Z. I've always found that funny, but the Demon Clan grows at a different rate. Nevertheless, is the performance still kind of made sense because Piccolo is the serious martial artist. He's not a goofy character. He's not always mad like Vegeta, or always irritated. Not so much mad, but irritated. Piccolo's also like a mentor. I think that Nassim's voice sounded more like Nail. Like, I think that Nassim could have actually voiced. I mean, he wasn't around when Z was being dubbed all the way back in the day, but he could have voiced Nail because he sounds like Nail. And I think that worked because Nail and Piccolo did fuse, so it makes sense in a way. There was also Neba, who they called Neva, the evil Namekian from the Demon Realm. His voice was fine for what it was, but it needed to sound older. We know that Neba is thousands of years old, not 1,000, way more than that. He's been around since the Namekians were in the Demon Realm, which happened way before. Like, this is before even Kami came to Earth. We're going back thousands of years. He didn't sound that old. He did not sound that old whatsoever. I would have preferred a bit more, like, like a bit scratchier voice, like somebody who's lived a long time. Now, obviously, they've been giving him, as we know in Dragon Ball Daima episodes 4 and 5, you can live longer in the demon realm with like life energy, but he's still really old. He walks with a cane, he's missing teeth. Like, I didn't think his performance was, it wasn't old enough, but the voice was fine. Now, Taylor Murphy plays Kid Bulma. She nails the Tiffany Vollmer, Monica Rial Bulma. Nailed it. This is exactly how Bulma would sound if she was a kid. So, big credits to her. Also, for Kid Krillin, Laura Woodhull did Kid Krillin. And again, it sounded different. It wasn't the same as Kid Krillin from the original Dragon Ball dub. It was not the same. It was a bit of a different performance and a funny one that worked. However, my favorite new voice, and they were all good, I mean, they were all fun, but the one that entertained me the most has to be Goma. My God, Goma was great. Just imagine taking the best of Babidi and the best of Pilaf and combining them. That's what Goma was. And honestly, Goma's kind of like that anyways. Tom Laughlin played Goma, and you could tell that he was watching the Japanese. You could tell that he definitely, out of that, he was coached very well by Jonathan Rigg, the ADR director. You could tell that he had done his homework because he nailed, like, this is how, I was watching, I'm like, this is the perfect voice for Goma. Like, this is flawless. It's like the first time I ever heard Jason Douglas and Ian Sinclair as Beerus and Whis. Like, when you hear those voices, it's like perfect. That's how Goma was. They were all good. It's just, like, that one just struck me because he had to be, like, really goofy, and he nailed it. The other voice I really loved, too, and again, they were all good, but I mean, ones that really stuck out to me was Dr. Arinsu's English dub voice, which is Morgan Laurie Garrett. She had the perfect combination of, like, seductive but also sinister. Like, she had the sarcasm of Dr. Arinsu, that sort of tone where you know she's planning something bad. Yeah, she had it, she nailed it, did a great job. Now, Glorio had already been revealed, during the New York Comic Con panel as Aaron Dismuke, and he played it up sort of like Glorio in the sub. I think the Japanese Glorio is a little bit more like bored. Like, he comes off like he's half awake sometimes. Glorio, This one was, he did the whisper, Glorio. Like, it was close to the Japanese, but less bored. However, I was okay with this because the scene where Glorio fights off those, like, barbarians in episode 3, he raised his voice, Goku, and, jumped in, did a great job. Again, this cast did a phenomenal job. And also, one more I want to mention, Nia Celeste voiced the Kid Supreme Kai, and again, it sounds like how Supreme Kai would sound if they were a kid. The tricky thing about this show is the voice actors have to sound like the originals, but kid versions, and that's tricky because you have to make sure the voice matches and you play with it. Oh, also, I should mention, Kid Master Roshi, Jordan Dash Cruz, he was hilarious. He got a couple of big laughs out of the audience. He even, oh man, I love this. I love when they get real nerdy. He called himself the Turtle Hermit. That's Anytime they go with the original Japanese like names, you know I love it because it's more pure. And again, I'm so excited to see Daima dub because the script is really, really close. Really, really close. It was fun. It was fun. I still think they should have had 4 episodes or 5. However, seeing Dragon Ball on the big screen again, enjoyable. And seeing a good dub. The Japanese music was still there, like the background music was still there. They have, of course, when they play the Japanese songs, they're in Japanese. They did not record any English versions, at least not yet. That may come in the future. And we'll see, because I think that now that these episodes are out, we're going to start seeing the dubbed episodes on Crunchyroll at some time very soon. I'm not sure if they're going to just start with all 3 or just drop the first 5. I don't know what they're going to do with that, but very soon the dub should be available on Crunchyroll and probably Netflix as well. Netflix might be a bit behind though, but let me know your experience if you saw it and how your theater was. Also, make sure you have your notifications turned on because Stephanie Nadolny will be coming on the channel very, very soon. I'll be interviewing her very soon, just waiting to lock in a date. And that should be a fun time because we may take your questions as well. So Stephanie and I back together again for the first time in years talking about her return to Dragon Ball. You're not going to want to miss it. You will not want to miss it. Right now on your screen are those playlists that you should check out. I will see you guys very soon. Take care.